As is mentioned, my company, Interface Studio, we do planning, urban design work. I'm going to give you a brief tour of who we are, but I'm going to talk a lot about Wicker Park. And really the task is to talk a little bit about outreach, public outreach, and its relationship to us as designers and planners, and some of the things that we've encountered in doing this kind of work in different cities. So the way that we often refer to ourselves at Interface Studio, we're based in Philadelphia, is that we're urban designers, but we're also graphic designers, we're data nerds, we're community facilitators. We have to play all of these roles. It used to be fairly easy to be a planner. You understood zoning, you understood land use, and you could go off and create plans. It's gotten far more complicated in recent years. And one of the key things that we stress in our office is that we have to be able to communicate. If people are going to get behind a plan, get behind a series of ideas, we have to communicate in a way that people get it, that they get excited about it. And so that means how we draw, how we design the public process, all of that really matters for us. The image in the background just shows a sampling of our projects drawn at the same scale. So we're an office of 9. We were 8 a week ago. Now we're an office of 9. That's a big jump for us. We've done citywide strategies, but we've done also everything down to the design of a block. So we like to think of ourselves as nimble, and part of the reason that we're nimble is that we're good at engaging the community in our process. And I will say that the majority of our work are in places like this. This is Camden, more Camden. This is Philadelphia. When I started the company about 8 years ago, I felt like there wasn't a lot of attention paid to cities that were really struggling. Detroit, Pittsburgh, Rochester, Paterson, New Jersey, Camden, all of these places were facing real challenges. And they weren't the kind of challenges I was taught in planning school where it's about managing growth. Well, we have all these people wanting to move here, so we need to adjust our policies in a way that gets us the kind of city that we want. If no one wants to move to some of these places, what's the alternative? So it's pretty rare that we work in a place like Wicker Park where there was growth. Usually we're working in these kinds of locations, and that really has shaped our practice and how we do what we do. So just broadly speaking, the different things that we've done over the years, a big heart of what we are community planners. So we're working with a lot of neighborhoods, community development corporations, business improvement districts, a lot of foundation funding going into helping communities, even really tough ones, improve what they have. So in some cases, that doesn't include development at all. It includes a lot of planning for green space and community participation and marketing. In some cases, it does include development. This is a neighborhood in Philadelphia called Francisville. Everything that's colored on this map are proposals that have moved forward since we completed the plan 5 years ago, and this was a place that was not even on the map in Philadelphia. So we found that when you get a very active group of volunteers involved in pushing a neighborhood forward, it can really help change the market and what happens in that neighborhood and the funding as well. We've also done housing strategies, citywide housing strategies. This is Rochester, New York, where we're helping cities determine how best to spend the limited dollars that they have. We recently finished the Detroit Works project, or now called Detroit Future City. So this was a master plan for all of Detroit. Our role was to write the economic growth piece of that plan. So where do people work? How can we increase jobs in the city? Which of course has an impact on land use, landscape, all of the issues that face Detroit. We were involved in that entire process. We're doing a lot of work on streetscapes and trails, including green infrastructure. I was just talking to a few folks. City of Philadelphia has a lot of money for green infrastructure projects. It's through the water department. So we're helping them think through how to integrate rain gardens and natural stormwater management into streets and neighborhoods. We do a fair amount of work on parks and open space, and this is where I often get resumes from a lot of landscape architects who think we are landscape architects. The reason is, when we're working in a place, Macon in the top is a good example, not a lot of market in Macon to build new housing. So one of the things that we can do is work with, in this case, Mercer University in the city and the neighborhood groups to determine some things that we can do to really improve where they live today without waiting for new development to come in the future. So we do a lot of park planning. We're not hired to ultimately design the park, but we can help get past a lot of rifts. And the park in the top in Macon, there was sort of this partisan divide where two groups of people felt really strongly about what the park should be. We helped them get past that in a way that we could help reprogram the park, and now it is being redesigned by a landscape architect in Atlanta. And we're also really involved in public art. We've been working with Haas and Han. They're also called the Favelas Painters. They painted an entire favela in Rio de Janeiro. They came to Philadelphia. They're now painting 3 entire blocks of a commercial street that was completely off the radar in Philadelphia, a really tough commercial street. So we helped them get this project off the ground, but we also did a lot of planning to make the most of that investment. If we're going to sink a lot of money into this kind of 3-block mural, what can we do to really make the most of it? And of course, every single project we do has to touch quality of life issues. When I was in planning school, I hated the term quality of life because it always felt like this kind of nebulous, well, what does that mean? But when people come to public meetings, they care about crime and safety and where the trash is and all of the things. If the plan can't communicate with people on a day-to-day basis, then we're missing our opportunity. So we have to deal with things like quality of life. We have to talk about crime and safety. We have to clean up blight. This is a community garden in Camden that happened a couple months after we were done with the plan. So when we're doing this work, we're not just thinking about what happens in a neighborhood 5 years from now, but what happens 5 months from now. What are the kinds of things that we can organize the neighborhood to do quickly? What underpins all of our work is the outreach strategies that we take. Anytime we start a project, we get these kinds of quotes. And for those of you that not be able to see it, the basic one we always get is, I don't want a plan that sits on a shelf, or we don't need to plan, we've done this before, why can't we just go improve something? The problem is a lot of planning is pretty poorly done. And there's a big difference between the way that we do it and I think the way that it's been done in the past. And a lot of this has to do with really understanding how we get people involved and how difficult it can be. So this is a great quote from someone that was involved in one of our plans. Don't just dream, do something. This is what we call our photo suggestion booth, which started here in Wicker Park. I'll talk about that in a second, but I want to talk about public meetings. Because if you're landscape architects and doing any work in a neighborhood, chances are you've had to run a public meeting. I hate them. I will do them if I have to. I will make them as fun as I need to. But by and large, you get the same folks out to every public meeting, right? It's the same 30 or 40 folks if you're lucky. And by and large, they're bored. You're not really tapping the diversity that's in any neighborhood that you're working in. So public meetings are tough, and it's hard to run a public process without public meetings, but what are the alternatives? Oftentimes what people tell us is that, well, shouldn't we just use social media? Facebook, Twitter, websites. This is the problem with social media. There's kind of a 99-1 rule with social media. 1% of users generate content. 1%, generally speaking. About 10%, or 9% rather, will edit or modify content, or they'll make some comments. The other 90% are just viewing it. And those are just the people that are online. So we like to use things like Facebook and Twitter, but honestly, it can't replace the face-to-face interaction, the public process that we've designed. It's just a way to kind of turn up the volume on what we're already doing.